It's taken him 43 years to learn this, and he's going to share it with you for free. And it's all about how your business can become Titanic. His name is Jack Cohen, and he's an accomplished executive, mentor capitalist with 43 years of expertise, leveraging his skills, experiences, and relationships to help individuals and organizations optimize their growth journeys. And what's so special about Jack is that he combines intellectual and economic capital to accelerate success for both people and businesses. And with a deep background in commercial real estate finance, Jack played a pivotal role in expanding the Cohen Financial platform from $200 million in origination and servicing to a remarkable $6 billion in origination and $35 billion in servicing. So the first question I have is, what's the secret to your success?
Welcome to Awakened Titans podcast with Lily Patrascu. Mind-blowing conversations with influential business titans sharing how you can manifest abundance, love, joy, success through quantum awakening, quantum manifestation, quantum healing, quantum miracles, exponential business growth, and innovative products and services.
Lily, thank you. I'm excited to be here. What's the secret of my success? I'd say maybe there's three of them. I think the first is for an individual to invest in their most valuable asset, themselves. And that goes for leaders and managers investing in their teams. Second is, I refer to it, if you remember grammar school math, is I call it long division. There are no shortcuts. Life is a to-do activity, not a to-think activity. And if you do the work and enjoy the journey, especially on a team of people that work for you as an entrepreneur, I think you're well on your way. And with that, the third key to success is there's only three things you have to do, but you have to do it daily. Everyone on your team has to be committed to acquiring skills, accumulating experiences, and developing relationships daily.
Thank you. Tell us about your journey of how you helped businesses become Titanic.
Well, again, it's rarely about me, other than the fact your kind introduction. There were two things I learned in college. One was only take a job where the responsibility is commensurate with the authority. And two, when you look back at your career after 43 years, do you want 43 years of real experience or 1 year of experience repeated 43 times? And I think what the real trick is for helping others is to get entrepreneurs to understand that generally they were the best ball player on the team. They think in terms of revenue and hiring and fundraising, but the key to growing a successful business is how do you convert your skill set as a world-class athlete to having success through others. And in my experience, when you get married and have children, CEOs tend to show up at home trying to apply everything they do at work. That never works. As a matter of fact, nothing at work works at home, but everything at home works at work. And if you think about your teams, not pedantically as children, but how you would raise your children, you would do things like setting clear goals and objectives, whether they were explained. No baby comes out knowing when to say thank you, please, or thank you. They don't know right from wrong, and they don't really know what their parents' expectation is. And over time, they figure that out. Businesses are the exact same thing and the exact same way.
Thank you. Tell us how entrepreneurs can create a business that will become Titanic.
I think that rationally speaking, entrepreneurs tend to show up their first day of their business and they start, when you were a kid, if you lived in the snow, you built a snowman, you started packing the snow, putting it in and rolling it forward. That's how most entrepreneurs think about building the business from the ground up. What I have found more successful is beginning with the end in mind in order to create pull energy. I wrote a book called Freedom Frameworks, and it's a collection of frameworks that I use to manage me, to manage others, to manage teams, to manage businesses. In one of them, I talk about the importance of having an intended future. And I encourage entrepreneurs to fantasize about the elements of a future sometime in that future in order to define not a soundbite that goes on the wall that they call a vision, but to paint a picture of where their team is going. I have found that if you grab your team and your business and pull it to that intended future, that's more successful than getting on the ground and pushing it to the future. The metaphor I like to use when I'm in person with somebody is to grab a heavy dumbbell and ask somebody in the room, what's easier, to push the dumbbell across the room or to pull it? And universally, everyone will figure out it is easier to pull a heavy weight, or metaphorically a business, than push it. You never see a horse and carriage where the horse is behind the carriage pushing. You have the horse pulling the carriage. So if the entrepreneur is the horse and the carriage is the business, pull energy to an intended future is the way I begin with executives to help them understand how to take their business and become Titanic with it.
Thank you. What is different about this strategy versus what entrepreneurs tend to do?
I don't know if you or your audience are professional basketball fans, but if you've ever gone to a professional basketball game, what you see before the game starts is a bunch of superstars with headsets on, dribbling the ball in sweats, scoring. And somebody sends the ball back to them, and their colleagues are all around them doing the same thing. My experience with entrepreneurs, the crazier the better, is it looks like an NBA shoot-around where they hire really good people, they tell them nothing what to do, and they just shoot, they just score. What I'm trying to get entrepreneurs to understand is like a good NBA coach. My experience with entrepreneurs is that they approach their businesses almost like athletes on an NBA basketball court in a pregame NBA shoot-around. Everyone's got headsets on. They're all taking their own shots. They're all scoring. And no one is really giving them any kind of coaching or coordination. Rather, the successful championship teams actually have an intended future, maybe a championship, maybe progress on a rebuild. They have a coach and a coaching staff that's committed to a strategy and a playbook. They teach the athletes how to coordinate and collaborate amongst one another so that their best skills are augmented by the best skills of another athlete, and the resulting weaknesses of an athlete are overcompensated by the strengths of another athlete, and then the coach actually calls plays. My view about entrepreneurs is they don't think about that. They think they come from, it's my business, I'm going to do whatever I want, I'm going to be arbitrary, I'm going to be capricious, it's still working, why should I change? Well, you shouldn't change unless you had a Titanic intended future. If you were really trying to scale a business, because a business with 4 employees is not managed the same way as 7 or 12 or 24 or 50 or 100 or more. And coordination and collaboration becomes a key tool.
So tell us more about the freedom frameworks that you created or you kind of came to know as being super important in terms of helping entrepreneurs to create a Titanic business.
Again, I think a lot of entrepreneurs come to their business because they had an idea, or they had a customer, or they had a supplier, and they were going to build a business around it. And like most entrepreneurs, they think about revenues and minimizing expenses to create a profit. My experience is that the collection of freedom frameworks organized from the individual who's investing in themselves to the team who's vested in their colleagues, to the business that is coordinated with one another is there's a whole host of skill acquisition, experience sharing, relationship development, collaboration, conflict resolution frameworks that people were never really given. And when they were giving it to them, they were likely given to them by randomly, they picked up from one thing or another. And so what I've tried to do is curate 50 or 60 frameworks organized in a workbook type fashion. And I use the frameworks I tell stories about my personal and professional life, that of my children as well as my colleagues, to kind of explain the various frameworks that are in there. My hope is that it reads as easy as a novel, but more importantly is that it works for the reader as a workbook, something that would be dog-eared on their desk. They'd pull out and say, hey, what's the right way to do goals and objectives? How could I replace goals and objectives with OKRs? How do you feel about a better conflict resolution method? What's the best way to get my children to play nice in the sandbox, my salespeople to position one another in as opposed to compete with one another? These are all things that I've learned the hard way over 43 years and tried to find solutions to organize and essentially optimize the journey of growing a business.
Thank you. Tell us 3 case studies of entrepreneurs or with companies that you have worked, and how did that work in terms of implementing some of these freedom frameworks into their company in order to create a Titanic business?
Great question. And I guess being sort of iconoclastic, I'll explain a failure. I have been in deal businesses, investment businesses my entire life. And what I have learned over 7 various platforms is when an entrepreneur comes in and says, Jack, I'm really interested in some support to institutionalize my business, to put people, processes in places, and people and processes and things in place. I have gone in and done just that. But what I find is the entrepreneur over time kind of tends to be passive aggressive and unwind those items. Why does he unwind them? Well, primarily because what he really meant is he wanted everyone else to be held accountable, but he wanted to dominate the domain of his design in order to do what he wanted to do on the negative side, which means where the cases have worked is when the entrepreneur really understood, A, the intended future of what they were trying to accomplish, and B, almost more importantly, is the sacrifices they were willing to make in contributing to this actually happening. So when I, a number of years ago, took over a small balance commercial real estate lender in Austin, Texas, my objective was really to come in and work with an existing team. I did not change out anyone. And what I really had to do was understand the motivations and desires, personally and professionally, of each of the heads of various departments. I then referred to the department as a unit because I found departments as divisionary. I started working, teaching people how to use positive language, right? My intent is a collective, a one company orientation. And what we did is we built our intended future as a company. We created our goals and objectives. We created department goals and objectives. We trained people to do personal goals and objectives, and everyone got aligned. We did reviews, raises, and bonuses, and then we put goals and objectives to the side, and we created project OKRs. OKRs were created by a guy named John Doerr, who wrote a book out of the Silicon Valley. Google in particular is very proud of the fact that they used OKRs to help them integrate YouTube into the Google platform. And what OKRs are collaborative communication skills for team members working on disparate projects that all come together. So if you think about this piecemeal, what you're trying to do is train each athlete to understand their job on the field and how they collaborate and coordinate with their unit and how other units organize themselves to achieve corporate goals.
Thank you. Tell us more about why did you call your book, for example, Freedom Frameworks? And how does that kind of like relate to the objective that you wanted to create with this book?
My view is entrepreneurs in particular, I think, became entrepreneurs because they didn't want the corporate domestic man to tell them what to do. They wanted the freedom to do what they wanted to do in business, to make money the way they wanted to do it, not be told what to do. If you take that down to the individual, a 35-year-old who's got 12 or 15 years of experience in a business could choose to leave to start his own business, or he could choose to change jobs or try and move up the corporate ladder. He seeks freedom to do that, but he doesn't really know how. So the context of the book was an optimization strategy to create freedom for the individual who desired an outcome different than their current reality.
Thank you. Tell us how entrepreneurs can create Titanic businesses whilst maintaining this freedom.
I think the art is what they already know how to do. What they really want to do, in my view, as entrepreneurs is dominate a domain of their design. So if they can be clear about the outcome they seek, they can design the domain that they want to dominate. And it's giving them a different design tool, if you will, that creates the opportunity for freedom. I've never met an entrepreneur, a true entrepreneur, who was satisfied by their revenues or profits. They always wanted to do more. They are free to do that, but maybe they don't have the framework to know what the next right thing would be to do. Or, I'll give you another sports metaphor. Tiger Woods, who is the professional golfer who's not what he used to be, when Tiger Woods was young and in his 20s, he was dominating the PGA Tour. But he concluded that it was not going to sustain his intended future. He stopped. He moved off the tour, and he took time to rebuild his swing and his approach to the game. He came back and dominated for decades more. I think the point to the story is entrepreneurs start a business and they start running and they never stop running. Can they actually know what they're running to as opposed to from? And will they have the discipline to create a design of their future that actually reflects what they want and course correct along the way? I find the biggest mistake entrepreneurs actually make is they don't take time out during the year to pause, to recalibrate, to re-strategize, and to possibly course correct.
Okay. What other freedom frameworks do you recommend entrepreneurs implement in their business to create a Titanic business that lasts for a long time? Because we see sometimes a lot of businesses that get really big and then they kind of collapse.
So I can only, again, I can work from my own experience, and my own experience was a business that, as you said, grew from 200 million of origination and servicing to 6 billion of origination and 35 billion of servicing. The trick I had to accept was two things. One, I believe in outside advisors. I would bring in 3 outside advisors and run quarterly board meetings. And as the CEO, as the entrepreneur, I would come to each meeting prepared with a strategic question, a strategic option that I was trying to accomplish. And I would ask these 3 outsiders to help us with our tactical execution. Over time, two things had to happen. One, every couple of years, I traded out my advisors for new advisors based on the new place where the business was at and where it needed to go. And the second part of this is that you have to recapitalize your business along the way. So back in the Cohen Financial days, over a 15-year period, I actually recapitalized the business 6 times. I was taking out shareholders who wanted their return. I was bringing in shareholders who wanted a different type of business. And this was a very fluid thing for me over and over, because as the business got bigger and bigger, it had different types of challenges requiring different types of shareholders and different types of advisors. I think those are two frameworks, advisors and recapitalization strategy, that entrepreneurs rarely take the time to think about.
Thank you. What do you recommend entrepreneurs do from a finance perspective in order to make sure that their finance works for them in the way that you kind of mentioned? It sounds very complicated, but what do you recommend they do?
I think the first thing that they have to accept is they, as entrepreneurs, have a balance sheet. On the left side of the balance sheet are their assets. On the right side are their liabilities and equity. The first thing they have to accept is that your asset duration should match your liability duration. One of the reasons in the U.S. the commercial real estate industry is having a little bit of a digestion problem is because people forgot asset and liability matching, and they took long-term assets and they financed them with short-term liabilities. And when interest rates spiked, their asset base couldn't support it. So the first thing is to have a sense of asset and liability matching. I think the second thing is to think about duration. Most entrepreneurs are executing a plan, even if it's just in their head. They should have an idea of how long it should take. A really bad idea is to have capital supporting the business that has shorter duration than the plan that they have to execute. Again, the commercial real estate metaphor for this, or real example, is I think over the last decade, some crazy number like 70 or 80% of all real estate financed was financed short-term and floating rate. People were buying assets and had a belief that what they were going to do was create value. What they didn't think about was how long it would take to execute their strategic plan for the asset. And what happened in 2022 and 23 and 24 is they ran out of time on their loans. They came due. At the same time, they failed completing their business plan, and interest rates went up and cap rates went up, reducing the value of their asset overall. The mistake for them wasn't, woe is me, interest rates went up, I'm a victim. It's they mismatched the duration of their capital financing with their strategic plan.
Thank you. Tell us, if entrepreneurs could remember just one thing from anything you've said or will say, what would that thing be?
I think the one thing I would say is entrepreneurs who really get successful but want more should remember nothing at work works at home, but everything at work at home, works at work. And that's an interesting conundrum because a lot of CEOs or entrepreneurs and founders come into the house after a day's work on the phone, taking phone calls, and they assume for some reason they're the CEO of their home, which, as we all know, is just not the case. And two things happen. One is they really upset the person really running the household. And two, what they'll find is they become in conflict with the people that are most important to them. Rather, if they did it in reverse, if they had family values, almost a family mission, a belief of how children were going to be raised and how they should see men and women interact, those tools taken to the business are transferable. They're transferable in creating intended futures. They're transferable in treating your associates with respect, teaching them guidelines and restraints, and giving them radical candor feedback to improve their particular games. I guess if they remembered all that, in my experience, it's not the destination, it's the journey. So enjoy the people that are on your team. If you're not enjoying the people on your team, get a new team. That would be my the two things I would say are my best. If it's not my best, they're my most important piece of advice for entrepreneurs growing businesses.
Thank you. Where can entrepreneurs find you and your products and services?
Thank you very much for asking that. So I have a superhero complex. I always liked superheroes, and my favorite superhero was Batman. So Batman was blessed with intellectual and economic resources, who created tools for his utility belt to help others optimize their journey and get home safely. I thought, what a metaphor for a business consulting business. So you can find me at www.darkknightventures.net. So Dark Knight, 2 Ks like Batman, Ventures, plural, S.net. And at Dark Knight Ventures, you can get a little more information about me, about the book Freedom Frameworks, podcasts that I've been on like this one, but more importantly, what I call Jack Chat, which is really a newsletter that I periodically put out that's primarily about the commercial real estate finance world in the United States.
Follow us for more interviews with world's most influential business titans, providing you with the insights to awaken to your full potential so you can get paid to be yourself, find true happiness, and manifest anything you desire.